Hey, good day. I'm Marty Walser, also known as Raging Owlbear on social media, and today I'm going to be looking at Monster Fight Club's Scenery Terrain. This is the Monster Fight Club um, designers did a Kickstarter a little while back, and it fulfilled earlier this year in the January through March timeframe. And they were basically building new scatter terrain for tabletop role playing and war games. And the entry price was pretty decent. They had several sort of low cost sets that you could kind of purchase a la carte or in a group. And they recently fulfilled, and now they're out on their own retail site. And I just wanted to talk a little bit about the product and how it compares to some others on the market. And so let's go ahead and start. For the Kickstarter last year, I actually ordered about a little over $100 of the product. And that was three sets that normally retail for $40 a piece. And then I got, of course, the stretch goals that normally come along with Kickstarter, and those pieces range from anywhere from like some $6 to $10, just little accoutrements, and up to some larger additional scatter pieces that may be 10, 15, $20 depending. But point being is that the Kickstarter was a really good deal, because you got a fair amount of money, a fair amount of items for about $120. So let me talk about the three sets that I ended up getting. They actually had sort of two primary themes. They had sort of like a regular forest scene, and then they had more of a sort of a dry desert theme as the two things. And the sets were essentially the same, but they might have had, for instance, the rock colors might have been sort of that sort of gray granite style rock that you maybe get in the East Coast, and then the same rocks painted in sort of the a more brownish theme that you might get further west. Sandstone, limestone, et cetera, et cetera. Um, so I ended up purchasing three of the sets. One called the Verdant Forest, which is a group of trees and a little pond. Another called Broken Ground, which was some rocks and fallen trees, as well as a couple of mats that you put down, and I'll show you those in a minute. And then what are called Rocky Hills, which is the several sort of stack up pieces for to give a little elevation, a little rock things that your minis could climb up on. So let's go ahead and I'll jump back and show you. This is the Verdant Forest piece. And this comes with three trees, a tree stump, and a little sort of vernal pond, which, if you flip it over, it's reversible. Has like a dried up pond areas with some, dried leaves and whatnot. Of course, you can flip it back. In the springtime, after the rainy season, you now have full of water again. And minis are in here just to show you the perspective sizes. So the three trees come with these sort of conical foliage on the top, and those are removable, so you can have just regular tree armatures as well if you want. This little tree has a little tree stand on it. That was a separate little stretch goal, but you can purchase some of those little accessories, for just a few dollars. But the base set for $40 was the foliage for on top of the trees, the armatures for the three different trees, and the pond and the tree stump in the front. These come painted, but the painting is pretty rudimentary. I'll show you that in a moment. So just to give you an idea of how these look a little bit closer, I'll try to hold them up to the camera, and hopefully I get some good light on this camera as well. A basic tree is cast in sort of a dark brown plastic. It looks like it has a little bit of like a a dark base coat or wash, sort of black or very dark brown, and then it's just got like a lighter brown dry brush highlight on top of it. So it's a pretty simple paint scheme. It's not, there's not a lot of detail work. That's something that if you wanted to, you could certainly add your own more dry brushing for highlights and add a few little details, because there are some little bits on on some of the trunks that allow you that you could get a little bit more. You could put in a little moss or whatnot. And a couple of the trunks have a little bit of like a mushroom growth, like the tree stumps have. This particular one, well, this particular one doesn't look like it has a whole lot. Sorry, it doesn't look like it has a whole lot of. But there's some detail in there that you could add. You could add a little bit of color or a little bit more highlight or a little bit stuff like that. So the paint jobs are very, just very basic. Base coat, some highlight, not a whole lot more. And it uses sort of the color of the plastic that they cast in it as part of the base coloring. So if you were to take the foliage as you can see, it's cast in. Let me trying to catch the light here. It's a sort of a dark green plastic casting. Very very sort of a deep olive. And then they, put like a green base coat on top of it, maybe a bit of a dark wash, and then you can see highlights in sort of a yellowish, yellow green, sort of highlights just to catch some of the leaves. So pretty simple coloring. So again, the set comes with the 3 trees, the stump, and the pond, which is sort of that neoprene mouse pad style rubber. It's very thin, so it sits pretty flush to the table. There's a little bit of a lip, but it's pretty minor. And this is actually a nice little touch. When I got it, I wasn't sure how it was going to look when it was going to come, but it's actually pretty nice. It's got a little, it's got some really sort of nice coloring in there, some shimmer, and a little depth in the middle, a little darker, and of course the edge is so, and then of course the other side is like dried leaves and whatnot. So it's actually a nice little scenery piece for your table, whether you're doing RPGs or tabletop minis. So let me put the next piece out there really quick. Just give me a moment. So the next piece I'm going to show is the sort of rocky hills, and this is a nice 3-piece set. It's a nice 3-piece set in a hard plastic. This is the sort of more granite color scheme. Gray has the plastic is a very very dark gray itself, and then there's some obviously dry brush highlights on the rock itself. Let's see if I can get some of that detail in there. This and some shading in the depths. So they probably did. They might have done a little wash, or they might have just used the plastic's natural darkness. But it's a nice. It's a even though it's a fairly simple color scheme, it's actually fairly nicely detailed. It's got lots of little little rocks and places, and it's got a lot of little nice places for minis to stand on the various levels. Some of them are depending upon the size of the base, the minis might not quite stand as well on the smaller parts. There is no grid on these particular pieces. They're more of a free form for more of like a regular miniatures combat game where you're just measuring with rulers and whatnot. And while these pieces aren't particularly modular, there are some parts that they kind of slot in together, to make, so you could make some larger rises. They're not like perfectly, like they don't form fit, so to speak. They're not like built exactly, but there's a couple of them have corners that can sort of fit together nicely. So you can make a larger hill or a smaller one. So they did take a little bit of time to sort of carve out a spot, in the larger hill so you could slide in the smaller kind of rocky. So that's a nice little feature to have a little bit of modularity. Um, so it gives you that little bit extra flexibility if you want to have a slightly larger rocky area. And again, these are single sort of cast rock pieces, hard, sort of hard plastic resin. Um, but I really like this set of rocky hills. I think it's a good variety. You have lots of sort of levels to move up and down, and again with the other pieces, you know, you can make some pretty neat arrangements. So that's a three-piece set. It's also retails at $40. Let me move that to the back here, and then so push those to the back, and then we have a broken ground set, which like the sorry, wrong piece. Like the Verdant Forest set comes with a couple of neoprene mats, and on one side it's just kind of like one side it's just sort of a rough, little bit of rocky terrain, and on the reverse side it's more like maybe this is a ruin at one time and it had larger stones, or an old, you know road with some sort of large rocks. And so you get with this particular set, you actually get two mats, reversible, and then it came with several rock pieces. So you have a couple of larger pillar rocks. You've got some intermediate size stones, and then you have like a smaller platform stone. And then let me slide this back a little bit, slot this in here. And then in addition to those pieces, there's like a fallen tree, a little bit hard. Let me put it on the other side so maybe that you can see a little bit more contrast. There's a fallen tree like that, and then there's another fallen tree where the root system is all kind of pulled up like that. And the interesting thing about this fallen tree too is it can technically kind of slot in if you're sort of careful with the way you arrange it. You can kind of slot it against a rock, so it looks like the tree is like grown next to, been sort of blocked by the rock and is grown around it. And so that's actually kind of a nice little touch, because it has this little slot on the backside. So it's either lying flat like that on the ground, or you could stand it up against a rock, which you can slot in on this side over here. So there's a nice, while I wouldn't say these sets, while I wouldn't necessarily call these sets like fully modular, because they don't necessarily all fit in all the little pieces, there's enough of a squaring off of some of the rock pieces that, again, you can join them up. You could take the broken ground rocks, join it with the rocky hill rocks, and you can have a real setup of, lots of step up and step downs, a nice little battlefield with cover, and, height, elevation, so that you can, do a nice little miniatures battle. Now, again, the paint on the trees is pretty much like the other ones. Dark plastic, maybe a little bit of a base coat or wash, and then like a lighter brown, just looks like dry brushed on top of it, or just very lightly painted. And again, there's a lot you could, if you wanted to touch it up, there's actually a lot you could do with this. There's a lot of really nice textures. So if you wanted to paint a little bit on yourself, that's great. The tree stump, I'm sorry, I missed the tree stump, which also comes with that set. Does have a little bit more in terms of detail, has some mushrooms on the side, there, and a little bit of extra detail. So you could paint that up really nicely, give a little bit more. color to the monochromatic. And again, the rocks are painted in the same color scheme as the Rocky Hills. And like I said, both of these sets, the Rocky Hill set and the others, the Broken Ground set, come in the two different themes. Come in the more with the more brownish rock faces and the grayish rock faces. Um, I'm I'm almost regretting getting the gray just because a lot of times when you have rock, there's a lot of gray, and the brown gives it a nice sort of contrast. So I might actually touch some of these up with some reddish browns and stuff like that to give it a little bit more, to just tone down the gray a little bit and give it a little bit more of a naturalistic. But these paint jobs are just fine. Honestly, they look good. There's a lot of light and shadow with the dry brushing. There's a lot of light and shadow, and the detail work is actually the sculpts are really nice. In terms of the rock sculpts, they're pretty naturalistic looking. I mean, I think they did a really nice job with that. So let me switch back to and again, you have the tree trunk and these smaller rock pieces, which are nice because they're just little step ups, and they can serve as some cover or a little bit of elevation for your minis. And these little broken trees thematically fit right in with the trees from the other set. And of course the rocks, and you can, if you have the backside, which has that nice little slot, of course you can add these other rock pieces into that little area on the backside. So those sets do kind of nicely mesh together. And again, they're not gridded. There isn't really any sort of 1 inch, grid style pattern. Honestly, that doesn't bother me that much. Even when I'm playing on a grid, I play a little bit loose. Like sometimes we'll just have measuring sticks, and I'll be like, okay, can you get there in 6 to 8 inches? You're fine. And these are easy enough to work with, in terms of using, even if you're playing on a grid, using movement rate to figure out, okay, well, it's going to take you, every step up is, 2 movement points, or, if you're moving upward, 10 feet of movement rather than 5 feet of movement for every inch, whatnot. You can easily work with this, even if you're using combat on a grid. Um, so, again, these 3 sets, if you were to purchase them online, $120. They have right now. They have free shipping if it's over $100. Actually, I think they might run that pretty much all the time. And so it's a nice set of scatter terrain for what you get, because each of the sets comes with several pieces. 3 trees, a tree stump, and the pond, or several rocks. That you can see two of the rough ground, the broken ground one, 2 of the broken ground bits, and 5 rocks, as well as some trees and stumps. I think that one's a really nice deal for what you get. And so all 3 of these sets together with the hill, the broken ground pieces, the forest pieces, and they have, again, in the forest pieces, they even have different colors. They have more autumnal colors. They have some sort of like bluish and gold colors and whatnot. So you can actually get, and you can purchase the canopies separately. You can actually purchase different color canopies. So if you already bought the tree set, you can purchase, oh, I have the green canopies. Now I'm going to purchase some orange canopies. I'm going to purchase some stuff like that. And they have a set with just all more of just the tree armatures. So, you can get 6 armatures without any tops. And then you can buy, and the little ponds. So you get the trees, you get the little pond piece, the mouse pad style pond. And the other stuff, you just don't get the toppers, but you get 6 pieces for $40, or 6 trees plus stumps for $40. And then you can buy 6 tree toppers for like $40, and you can buy them in different colors. So if you really wanted to get a forest out there super quick, you could easily buy 1 set of the green, 2 of the plain unfoliaged, and then a set of the 6. That would be about $120 too. You have a really nice, fairly large sized forest. But again, so that is the overview of those sets. They do have some other small sets. They have some crystals, which I got a few pieces as part of like the stretch goals and the Kickstarter. They do have like separate crystal pieces with the rocks on them, and some other, like I said, accessories, campfire. I'm sorry, I put down the campfire, and now I can't. Oh, there it is. So there's a campfire and a little rock sort of cairn. So you have your campfire. You know, put them out there with the minis. They all stand around it, but um, so you know you can set up a nice little scene with some of the accessories and the rocks that they give you. Um, and you know I like the value of these pieces. So that said, how does it compare? Now, fair or not, fair or not, people are going to compare this scatter terrain with something like Dwarven Forge because that's just the way it is. Dwarven Forge is obviously in terms of the terrain, is the big kahuna in this particular market, but Dwarven Forge tends not to serve the scatter terrain market as much and more of the sort of large dungeon or encounter setup type stuff with walls and floors and stuff like that. However, the last two Kickstarters, they've put a lot more trees, and the recent Wildlands Kickstarter that literally just closed the other day, you know, had lots of scatter terrain. So I thought long and hard of how does what Monster Fight Club, their terrain, sort of compare? How can you make the comparison fair to both Dwarven Forge and Monster Train, because they're kind of different, not different markets, but you know they serve kind of different levels. And let me kind of explain. So you take something like this this rock piece, which is a nice hefty piece, which you know has a lot of detail. So it is a single piece, but it's a nice chunky piece. With Dwarven Forge, if you were to buy some of their sort of mountainous terrain, you have a lot of smaller pieces, and you can arrange them, so you have a lot of flexibility. But the what you end up paying for in flexibility and especially if you get it painted, you know, it ends up being a lot sort of a more of a premium product. It's pricier. The paint jobs are definitely more detailed. They have a team that really gets in there, and so they do a little bit more than sort of the base coat and highlight and stuff like that. They get into some details, and the sculpts have, especially the newer sculpts, have lots of little things, you know, whether it's moss or other items on the terrain, on the Dwarven Forge terrain. But it's hard to compare them because again, you have lots of these little modular pieces. They have a lot of detail and they have a high-end paint job, but they're very expensive. When you end up getting a set that's large enough to create a hill of this size, you actually end up spending a fair amount of money. And that was when I did one of the Kickstarters a couple of years ago for Dwarven Forge, and it had mountain pieces in it. You know, I tried to keep sort of a budget in mind, and I bought some of the pieces to add to my existing other terrain. And when I got it, you know, I had spent a fair amount of money, and when I got it, it was cool and it was exciting looking, but it was not a lot. It didn't feel, you know, chunky. There was, you know, again, you're paying a premium for these nice, beautiful, you know, resin pieces. You know, there's no doubt about it. Dwarven Forge is nice. It's really nice. It's really high end. It's beautiful paint jobs. I mean, they look lovely on the table. But in order to get like a workable scene, you're spending a lot of money. And you know, that could be 200, 300, $500 for, you know, a fair amount. Now again, I want to be fair to Dwarven Forge because their paint jobs are nice. But even when you buy the unpainted paint jobs, if you're building a large enough scene, it still kind of adds up, even with the unpainted. Um, the Monster Fight Club stuff is, I mean, the detail on this is really, really nice on these sculpts. And granted, they're not as modular. They're not grid based. It's like the Dwarven Forge. Everything kind of fits into that. I mean, the Dwarven Forge does a really good job of creating a grid, but still giving you sort of naturalistic surfaces and elevations and stuff like that. And they don't do a grid on these, and that's fine. I'm not digging them for that because I love these. I like these sculpts. They're great. The rocks that come in these sets are really nice. The trees are fairly basic armatures. They're somewhat flat because you're casting. Sorry, I threw the other one out of reach. But they don't have a whole lot of three dimensionality because of the mold, because you have to create a mold that you have to sort of peel apart. And Dwarven Forge has done a little bit better job. They do a better job of giving you a little bit more three dimensionality because of the way their trees are more modular. But again, you're paying for that premium. The Kickstarter that just passed, the $50 entry piece gave you like 2 trees and a little bit of ground stuff. And it was $50 and plus, it was 50 and change with shipping. And by the time you kind of built up to something that was, a little bit more significant, you're easily spending $250, $300 or more. And so the Monster Fight Club, with their $40 sets, I don't want to say that, I don't want to call them cheap. They're not cheap. They're less expensive, but again, you're with Dwarven Forge, you're paying for that premium. You're paying for that extra paint job. You're paying for that extra modularity. You're paying for when some of the pieces a lot more details. And not that these are bad sculpts, but Dwarven Forge really sculpts, especially some of the escarpment pieces. But those pieces are also very expensive as well. So, how can you fairly compare sort of the higher end Dwarven Forge with, I don't want to say lower end, but with the more basic entry level stuff that Monster Fight Club? I thought a lot about this because again, I think the value for these 3 sets at like about $120, which actually right now retail $120, shipping included, 3 $40 sets. The value for getting all those rocks, getting the trees, the tree stumps, the fallen trees, stuff like that, is excellent. You do have to get the free shipping. You do have to get above that $100 threshold. But if you 2 sets is $80, you could throw in a couple of the accessory packs as well and easily hit that $100 threshold. If you just want to spend like right at 100, get the free shipping for that last $20 worth of doodads. It's a good deal. The Monster Fight, and they full disclosure, they didn't give me any product for this. I purchased this on my own. I kickstarted it. I just think these are nice. They're going to be doing a wintry themed Kickstarter soon. I'm interested to see what they have. I probably won't be doing a lot of winter stuff, so I don't know if I'll do that one. But with the upcoming D&D adventure that's coming out and other stuff that's obviously other companies that'll probably follow along with similarly themed sets and adventure and stuff like that, the winter thing might become big because of the Rime of the Frost Maiden coming out fairly soon, this week actually, or possibly even today. So where does that leave you? I think for $120, well, $40 sets. Each of these sets is $40. 3 of these sets combined, you get a really nice group of scatter terrain for your table. It's a good deal. I really do think it's a good deal. Dwarven Forge looks a lot prettier, but to get really what you want to see on the table, because you have to buy base pieces and accessory pieces, so you have to have some of the sort of the base bits. You're gonna spend a lot more money. You'll get a lot of value out of that, lot more money in Dwarven Forge. But if you're on a budget, I honestly think this is the good stuff. This is the scatter. If you're just looking for scatter terrain and you're not looking for whole forest systems, and all, you don't need all the floors. You're not buying all the floor pieces. You're not buying big terrain trays to put your other pieces on. You just want some scatter. You want some trees. You want some rocks. I think these rocks are great. I may even pick up the brown sets down the road, when hopefully when people are doing a little more face-to-face gaming again. Knock on wood, knock on terrain. So these are good budget sets. Honestly, I don't know what else to say. I think if you have $100 to spend, you might look through their site and see if some of this stuff attracts you. In terms of cons, I mean, I didn't really go into the cons a whole lot. Um, I think the shape of the foliage is a little bit. They might have been able to do a little bit better with the toppers. It feels a little bit weirdly conical to me. Yeah, it's subjective, honestly. It looks pretty good on the table. It's not, you know, I'm just a little bit funky. I mean, I shouldn't complain. I made trees out of little sponge bits and flock and styrofoam. But they're sponge bits, flock, and styrofoam, so they're gonna look a little bit wonky. With sculpted resin, I do have a little bit of the bar has been set very high by companies like Dwarven Forge, and with 3D printing becoming fairly inexpensive now, and sets that you can buy now from secondary printers, 3D printers, or you buy the STLs and get them printed somewhere, or whatnot, or you have your own 3D printer. The level of sculpt professionalism is really, it's climbing. So I don't know if I'd call it a con with the foliage. They look a little funny to me sometimes, but honestly, it's minor. It's very minor. I really like the rocks, and I really like the accessories that came with the Kickstarter. And again, they have those on the website from anywhere from like $6 to $15, depending upon how many bits come in their accessory packs, um, or whatnot. Actually, a couple of packs they have like a $20 to $25 sets, I believe. That have a little bit more to them. So I think I've gone on long enough. The the terrain bits, they look good on the table. Um, all right, let me get in the frame here just a little bit. That's what I get for, your trees, your rocks, your little neoprene mats for the stuff, accessories. Um, yeah, it looks good. You for that amount of money, you could have a pretty fairly large setup, and if you throw in some other scatter bits from here and there, bushes and stuff like that, stuff you maybe made it yourself real easily with some flocking material. You can have a pretty nice looking setup without spending that Dwarven Forge level of cash. So that said, it's a good deal. Owlbear approved. That's not really a thing, but I hope you like the review. I hope it helps. Please like and subscribe. I don't do reviews often. I do more just generalized talking about D&D stuff. But every when I do get something new that tickles my fancy, I like to give a shout out to the company that makes it, because we need to support uh, people making a living in this industry, because there's lots of great stuff happening right now. So I hope you like this. Monster Fight Club guys, good job. This is really nice terrain pieces, and I hope we get to play in person soon, because I really do want to. I got these right pretty much as we were no longer gaming in person, or just before everything. Well, so I hope to deploy these back on the table sometime soon. And heck, some of these the Rocky stuff could even be used with stuff like BattleTech if you want to, or Alpha Strike, which is right up there somewhere. Not just D&D. So it's great for lots of different miniature games. That's it. I'm Marty Walzer. Raging Owlbear on social media. Like and subscribe, please. Give me a little bit of a, Benny. And I hope you have a good day.